Hello students, hope you're doing well. Today we're going to be continuing going through the book Bobby Fischer's Outrageous Chess Moves by Bruce Pandolfini. We're on 16 through 20 of the different positions, and let's just jump into it. Okay, so this first position is by Fischer versus Paul Benko in Curacao 1962. So pause now to try to find the answer. Okay, and the answer is rook to d6. So you have a fork. The rook is now attacking the bishop and the pawn, and the way black responds is by capturing this pawn here, because right now this bishop is under attack by the pawn too. So once the king recaptures, then the pawn captures the bishop. And then now, instead of capturing the pawn, Fischer pushes. And the idea is to just push this pawn to go get a queen. Okay? And then black tries to attack the pawn. Pawn advances and is protected by the rook. And now the idea is just to march this king up to kick this rook out of the square. So then the pawn can advance to the 8th rank and become a queen. So that's the idea. It's a simple idea. And then now you exchange the rook for the queen. And there's a bunch more moves, but the basic idea is to keep this king in front of the pawn so the pawn can't advance. And the way you do that is just by checking the king like this. And it moves the king over, and then you can advance your pawn. So once the king is in front of the pawn, then you can advance. Check, advance, check, advance, check. And then you just do this all the way until you get a queen. And then bring the queen over to help. Capture the pawn, and then this is an easy mate from here. Okay, this next position is Fischer versus William Addison, Palma de Mallorca in 1970. So pause now to try to find the answer. Okay, the answer is rook captures d5. And the idea is you want to bring the knight to this square. So after the pawn recaptures, then you bring the knight here with a fork on the bishop and the queen. And then once the queen moves, so you go here, then you have, this is a possible move. So you're forking the rook and the king. But instead of doing that, the Fischer attacks the queen instead with rook to b1. And the idea is to bring this rook to the 7th rank in order to try to checkmate the king. So Fischer's looking to find checkmate here. And then you get a check. And then now there's too many threats. So black resigned here because you have bishop captures g6 threat. You have knight captures e7. So probably the best move for black would be just to castle the king. And then you're going to lose this bishop no matter what, but at least the king is a little bit safer here. And the rook is brought into the game too. So that's probably the best plan for black. But it's still losing. Okay. This next position is Fischer versus Max Yu in Leipzig in 1970. So pause now. Okay. And the answer is bishop to e5. And the whole point, the idea is to pin this bishop so the bishop can't come capture the pawn when you're trying to promote it. So capture, and then you just push the pawn up and get a queen. This is winning for white. There's some other ideas here too. So if black does any other move besides capturing the bishop, white has two options. He can either just simply capture the bishop in exchange and push the pawn, or he can actually just push the pawn immediately because this bishop is pinned. He can't move. He can't come capture this pawn, so he's stuck there. And then after captures, we go get the queen. So that is possible, but I think it's better to actually just, if you play pushes, you just capture. So then you're not losing the bishop. And you just go get it. Go get the queen. Okay, this next position is from a game played by Svetozar Gligoric versus Fischer in Palma de Mallorca in 1970. So pause now to find the answer. Okay, this is a really nice one. So the answer is knight to d3. And the idea is you're forking the queen and the rook. And the rook on d1 can't capture because you have a back rank problem. So let's say the rook captures the knight, then the queen goes to a1, and this is actually a forced checkmate because the queen and the two rooks can't coordinate in order to protect the back rank. So they're going to have to give each of them. So if white doesn't resign and plays this out, then it's rook d1, you capture, queen e1 capture, rook f1 capture, and that's mate. So in the game, white captured the pawn on b6, and then you get a nice fork again. Queen captures knight. And the idea is just to attack the king and then trade off pieces. So then he moves here. Rook to a1 to try to come and capture this rook. So let's say the queen tries to protect. Then you just trade down and maybe bring the queen back to safety to protect the king, and then let the bishop do some work too. Okay, this final position is from Donato Rivera versus Fischer in Varna in 1962. So pause now to find the answer. Okay, the answer is queen to c6. So you have a checkmate threat here along the a8 h1 diagonal. And so white has to protect against this with f3. And then the true point of this move, queen to c6, is you move queen to b5 with the skewer along the b file on these two bishops. So you're going to lose one of these bishops no matter what. Let's say this bishop moves out of the way, then you just come take this one. And if you move this one out of the way, then queen captures b3, queen captures b3, knight captures b3 with a fork, and you're gonna be down a piece here. So that's the point of that move. Alright, that's it for today. Hope you're doing well, and take care. Alright, bye.